Maya Ellis was not the kind of person you'd expect to make headlines just for driving home. She lived a quiet life in Silverton Heights, a peaceful suburb where most people knew their neighbors and crime rarely made the news. But Maya wasn't just anyone. She had spent years studying public policy, working her way up through government offices and finally landing the biggest job of her life, Director of Homeland Security. It was a big deal, not just because it was one of the most important jobs in the country, but because she was the first Black woman to ever hold that position. For many, she was proof that change was possible. For others, especially those who didn't like the new administration's policies, she was a threat. Maya didn't let that bother her. She believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard. She had grown up in a small town where her parents worked 2 jobs each just to give her and her brother a good start. Education was everything in her family. Maya had gone to college on scholarship, then grad school, and eventually landed in Washington, D.C., where she helped write laws that protected people from terrorism and cyber attacks. When the new president was elected, they picked her to lead Homeland Security. It wasn't an easy job. There were always threats, always something happening at the borders, and always political pressure from both sides. But Maya took it all in stride. She was calm under pressure, sharp as a tack, and never let anyone push her around. She kept her personal life simple. Every morning she woke up early, made coffee, read the news, and got ready for work. She drove herself everywhere, even though her security team said she shouldn't. She liked being normal. She liked seeing the world outside the White House bubble. On the day it all started, Maya had just come back from a long meeting about airport security upgrades. The meeting had run late, and now she was tired and hungry. As she turned onto her street, she saw flashing lights behind her. A police car. She checked her mirrors and her speed. She wasn't speeding. Her blinker was on. She didn't see any reason for a traffic stop. Still, she pulled over carefully, like she always did. She rolled down her window and looked into the face of the officer. He was white, mid-30s, with a clean-shaven face and a tight jawline. He didn't look friendly. "Good evening, ma'am," he said, shining a flashlight into her car. "License and registration, please." Maya reached into the glove compartment calmly. "Is there a problem, officer?" "You were driving with a broken taillight," he said, pointing to the back of her car. Maya blinked. "I didn't know. Thank you for letting me know." She handed him her license and registration. He took them without a word and walked back to his car. Maya sat quietly, waiting. She had been pulled over before. Usually it was quick. You got a warning or a ticket, and that was that. But this time, something felt different. Another car showed up. Then another. 4 officers now stood near her car. One of them stepped forward, older, maybe the supervisor. "Ma'am, we received a tip that there might be suspicious activity near your residence," he said. Maya frowned. "Suspicious activity?" He nodded. "We're going to need to search your car." Maya stayed calm. "I understand you have a job to do, but I'd like to record this interaction if that's okay." "That's fine," the officer said, but his tone was cold. Maya pulled out her phone and started recording. She made sure the camera could catch her side of the conversation and part of the road. The officers searched her car, opening the trunk, checking under seats, even looking inside her purse. They found nothing. After 20 minutes, they returned everything to her. "No issues?" Maya asked politely. "No," the older officer said, "but we may be in touch." Maya raised an eyebrow. "About what?" He didn't answer, just gave her back her license and walked away. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She replayed the stop in her mind. Something wasn't right. Why 4 cops for a broken taillight? Why the mention of a tip about her house? She decided to check the cameras around her home. Most houses in the neighborhood had them. It was a safe place, but people still liked to be careful. She reviewed the footage from the past few hours. What she saw made her stomach drop. The police cars had arrived at her house more than an hour before the traffic stop. They parked around the corner, waited, and watched. One officer got out and walked toward her backyard. Maya paused the video, rewound it, watched again. Yes. There it was. The same officer who had pulled her over was seen walking near the back of her house, and he wasn't alone. Something was going on. She called her assistant first thing in the morning. "I need someone to look into this," she said, "and I want federal lawyers involved." Her assistant hesitated. "Are you sure, Dr. Ellis?" Maya stared out the window. "No, I'm not sure. That's why I need to know." Later that week, the news broke. An anonymous source leaked details about an upcoming raid on the home of the Homeland Security Director. Rumors flew. Some said she was hiding weapons. Others claimed she had stolen government secrets. Maya tried to stay calm. She trusted the system. She had done nothing wrong, but deep down she knew something bigger was coming. Then came the knock on her door, early in the morning, loud, insistent. She opened it. More officers, this time with badges that read SWAT across the chest. "We have a warrant," one of them said. Maya stood tall. "Let me see it." The officer handed her a piece of paper. She scanned it quickly. The names didn't match the ones on the seal. The date was wrong. The signature looked forged. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a setup. Maya stood in her doorway, holding the warrant like it was a ticking clock. She had seen hundreds of legal documents in her life, reports, policies, court orders, but this one felt different, off, like it didn't belong in the real world. Still, she didn't panic, not yet. She looked up at the officers standing on her porch. They were dressed in full gear, helmets, vests, gloves. One of them held a battering ram. Behind them, more officers waited by their vehicles, watching, inebriated. "I get your names?" Maya asked calmly. One officer stepped forward. "We're following procedure, ma'am." "I understand," she said, "but I'd like to know who's involved. And I'm recording this." She pulled out her phone again and hit record. The officer hesitated, then nodded. He gave his name, badge number, and department. The others followed suit, though not all of them seemed happy about it. With that done, the officers entered her home. They moved quickly, checking rooms, opening drawers, looking behind furniture. Maya stayed near the living room, phone still recording, heart pounding but face calm. Her assistant arrived a few minutes later, after getting a call from Maya's neighbor. He brought a small notebook and sat quietly on the couch taking notes. For over an hour, nothing happened. Just the sound of boots on wood floors, the rustle of paper, the occasional clatter of something being moved. Then someone shouted from the basement, "We've got something." Maya turned sharply. Her basement wasn't used much, just storage, some old boxes, and a locked cabinet where she kept personal files. She watched as two officers came upstairs carrying a black duffel bag. Another officer followed, holding what looked like a sealed folder marked classified. "This yours?" one of them asked. Maya stared at the items. She knew for a fact they hadn't been in her house before. But now they were here. And now, she was in serious trouble. "I can explain everything," she said. "But first, I need to speak with my legal team." "You'll have that chance," the lead officer replied. "But you're under arrest." That's when things changed. Fast. They cuffed her. Not roughly, but firmly. They read her rights. Then they led her outside, where reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashed, phones recorded. Someone yelled, "Is this true? Are you spying on the government?" Maya didn't answer. She just walked to the car, head high. By the next morning, the news was everywhere. Headlines screamed, "Director of Homeland. Security arrested in shocking national security case. Evidence found in home of top official. Is government safe?" Social media exploded. Some people called her a traitor. Others said it was a political attack. Protesters showed up outside her office and even at her home, waving signs and chanting for justice. Inside the White House, silence. The president didn't comment. Neither did the vice president. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. In a quiet meeting room in the Department of Justice, top lawyers met behind closed doors. Maya's team worked fast. They reviewed the warrant again and again. Something was definitely wrong with it. First, the issuing judge had no record of signing it. Second, the timeline didn't match. Third, the evidence found in the basement had no chain of custody. No one could prove how it got there. More questions came up. Why had police shown up at her house before pulling her over? How did they know? Where to look? Who made the anonymous tip? Suspicion began to grow. This wasn't just a mistake. It was planned. Meanwhile, Maya was released on bail, but her job was put on hold. She couldn't go into the office, couldn't attend meetings, couldn't even access her own emails. She felt like a ghost in her own life. But she wasn't done fighting. Late one night, she went through the footage from her home cameras again. She zoomed in on the moment the police cars arrived. She noticed something new. One of the officers got out of the car and walked around the back of her house. He carried a small backpack. She paused the video, rewound it, played it again. There it was. He opened the basement window, reached inside, and dropped something in. Maya's breath caught. She had proof, not just of a bad search, not just of a false arrest, of a setup. She sent the video to her lawyer right away. Within hours, her team filed an emergency motion with the court. They demanded a full review of the case. They wanted the charges dropped. They wanted the truth uncovered. And most of all, they wanted justice. As the days passed, more people started to believe her. Reporters dug deeper. Experts pointed out flaws in the investigation. Even some former law enforcement officials spoke out, saying the whole thing looked suspicious. Still, the damage was done. Maya's reputation was on the line. Her work was stalled. Her family was scared. But she remained strong. She knew this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about power. About fairness. About how far some people would go to silence someone who dared to rise, and she wasn't going to let them win. He sipped her coffee slowly, trying not to let the noise get to her. But it was hard. Every word felt like a punch. Every photo of her being led away in handcuffs made her stomach twist. Her assistant, Daniel, sat across from her with a notebook, open. "We've got 2 more interviews lined up today," he said. "One with the Times, one with Channel 7 News." Maya nodded. "I'll do them, but only if I can speak freely." Daniel smiled slightly. "That's the plan." But even as they planned their next move, something bigger was already happening behind the scenes. A hidden connection. Back at police headquarters, things were starting to crack. Detective James Lang had been on the force for over 15 years. He wasn't a bad guy, just a man who followed orders and tried to stay out of trouble. But when he saw the footage from Maya Ellis's house, something didn't sit right with him. He watched the video again, the officer walking around the back of the house, dropping something through the basement window. That wasn't procedure. That was planting evidence. Lang knew people in the department who didn't like Maya. Some of them had made jokes about her job, about how she wasn't built for real work. Others had openly criticized the new administration and its policies. Still, he didn't say anything at first. Not until someone came to him with a name. It was an anonymous tip, just a message sent to his personal email. No return address. Just a short sentence. "You know what really happened. Tell the truth before it's too late." Lang read it 3 times. Then he closed his laptop and walked outside. He needed air. And answers. The leak 2 days later, something huge hit the internet. A full copy of the police dashcam footage from the night Maya was pulled over was posted online. It showed everything. The officers arriving at her house before the traffic stop, the way they waited, the way one of them went into the backyard. The video spread like fire. Reporters picked it up. Experts studied it. Social media exploded. Proof of police misconduct. Viral video sparks outrage. Was the director framed? People started asking questions. Who gave the order? Who approved the warrant? Why did the judge deny signing it? More pressure grew. Then came another leak, this time from inside the Justice Department. Internal emails were found showing that certain officials had pushed for the investigation without clear cause. Someone had gone rogue, and now Everyone wanted to know who. The hearing. Within a week, Congress called for a hearing. Maya was invited to testify, not as a suspect, but as a witness. She accepted immediately. On the day of the hearing, the room was packed. Reporters filled the press section. Cameras rolled. Lawmakers sat at the long table, waiting. Maya walked in wearing a dark suit, her hair neatly tied back. She looked calm, but inside she was ready. She took her seat and faced the committee. "Dr. Ellis," the chairperson began, "can you confirm that you were aware of any illegal activity in your home before the search?" "No," Maya said clearly. "I did not have any weapons or classified documents in my possession before the raid." "And yet, both were found during the search," another senator added. "Yes," Maya replied, "but not by me. And not legally." She clicked a button on her tablet. A large screen behind her lit up. The dashcam footage played again. Slow, clear, undeniable. Gasps filled the room. Maya continued. "This is not just about me. This is about how far some will go to silence voices they don't agree with. This is about power, control, and the abuse of authority." Silence followed. Then applause. Quiet at first, then growing. A new battle begins. After the hearing, everything changed. The Justice Department opened a full internal review. Federal agents raided several police stations looking for records, communications, and evidence. More names came up. The original officer who pulled Maya over was suspended. So was the detective who signed off on the warrant. Even the local police chief stepped down under pressure. Maya's suspension from Homeland Security was lifted. She returned to work, but not everything was the same. She was stronger now, more focused. She used her position to push for reform, better oversight of local law enforcement, clearer rules for searches involving public officials, and more transparency in how warrants were issued. People listened. For the first time, real change seemed possible. A moment of peace late. One evening, Maya stood on her porch looking out at the quiet street. The cameras were gone. The reporters had moved on. Her life was hers again, mostly. Daniel joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" he asked. Maya smiled. "Yeah, better than okay." He handed her a cup. "So what's next?" She took a sip, thinking. "Next," she said, "we make sure this never happens to anyone else." Daniel nodded. "Sounds like a plan." They stood there for a while in the cool night air, watching the stars come out. The fight wasn't over, but neither were they. Maya Ellis sat at the long wooden table beside her lawyers, calm but alert. Across from her were the officers who had been involved in the raid on her home. Some looked nervous. Others stared straight ahead, avoiding eye contact. This wasn't just a trial about her. It was about truth, about power, about justice. The judge entered the room. Everyone stood. The air felt heavy with expectation. The prosecutor began. "This case is not about politics," she said firmly. "It's about law enforcement breaking the very laws they are sworn to protect." A murmur ran through the crowd. Then came the first witness, Detective James Lang. He walked up to the stand, adjusted his tie, and took his seat. He looked directly at Maya before beginning. "I've been on the force for over 15 years, he said. "And I've never seen anything like this." He described how he noticed something strange about the timing of the raid, how police arrived at Maya's house before the traffic stop, how one officer was seen dropping something through a basement window. Lang also shared what he found after digging deeper, messages between certain officers that suggested bias against Maya's leadership, and even ties to online groups that oppose the current administration. One message read, "We need to take her down before she ruins everything." Another said, "She doesn't belong in that position. Someone needs to make sure she doesn't stay there." Gasps filled the room again. Maya listened carefully, her face unreadable. Next came the video footage, again shown to the jury. The same dashcam clips, the same body cam recordings, the same moments that started it all. The defense tried to argue that mistakes happen, that the warrant may have been flawed, but that didn't mean anyone did anything wrong on purpose. But the jury wasn't buying it. They saw the same thing everyone else did. A setup, a surprise witness, then came someone no one expected. Officer Marcus Ray, one of the men who had been at Maya's house that night, stood up and asked to speak. "I want to testify," he said. The courtroom went silent. Ray had been one of the officers who searched her car. He had seemed cold during the process, unfeeling. Now he looked different. Tired, guilty. "I was told this was a routine search," he said. "I believed it, until I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." He explained that later that night. He overheard two other officers talking in the locker room. They said the evidence was planted, he admitted, that the whole thing was planned to embarrass Dr. Ellis and weaken the Department of Homeland Security. He looked at Maya directly. "I didn't say anything at first," he continued. "I was scared, but I can't live with this anymore." There was a pause. Then the judge leaned forward. "Do you understand the seriousness of your statement, Officer Ray?" "Yes, Your Honor," he replied, "and I'm ready to face whatever comes next." The weight of his words hit the room like a wave. For the first time, someone from inside the system confirmed what many suspected. Maya had been framed. Fallout begins. As the trial continued, more officers were charged with misconduct, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The former police chief resigned permanently. Investigations were launched into several departments across the state. Public trust in local law enforcement dropped sharply, but support for Maya grew stronger than ever. Across the country, people held rallies in her name. Stand with Maya. Truth over power. Justice for All students wrote papers about her in school. Young women looked up to her as proof that they could rise, no matter how hard others tried to push them down. Even the president finally spoke publicly. She faced an attack meant to silence her, he said in a televised address. Instead, she showed us what courage looks like. Maya watched the speech from her office at Homeland Security. She had returned to work full-time now, and things were slowly getting back to normal. But nothing would ever be exactly the same. Personal moment. Later that week, Maya visited her parents. They lived in the same small town where she grew up. Her father still fixed cars at his garage. Her mother still baked pies for neighbors. As they sat together on the porch, sipping sweet tea, her mom reached out and touched her hand. "You did good, baby," she said softly. Maya smiled. "I just did what I had to do." Her father nodded. "You always did." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the wind rustle the trees. Then her phone buzzed. Daniel sent a message. "The jury has reached a verdict." Maya stood up. "I should go." Her father stood too. "Go get him," he said. The verdict back in court. The tension was thick. The judge called for silence. "The jury has reached its decision." Everyone held their breath. In the case of United States versus Officer Carl Dawson, a pause. The jury finds the defendant guilty of conspiracy, unlawful search, and obstruction of justice. A second officer was also found guilty. Gasps. Some cheers. Some cries. Maya closed her eyes for a moment. It wasn't revenge she wanted. It was justice. And today, justice had won. She took a deep breath and smiled slightly. The journey had been long and painful, but now here she was, stronger than ever. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about change. About making sure that what happened to her wouldn't happen to anyone else. She stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "Today isn't about me. It's about the future we're building together." The audience leaned in. "I've spent my life believing in this country," Maya continued. "Believing in its promise and fairness and justice, and yes, I've seen the worst of it, but I've also seen the best." She paused, letting her words settle. "What happened to me was wrong, but it taught me something important. That silence helps no one. That truth must be spoken. even when it's hard. A few people clapped softly. I'm not here to dwell on the past, she said. I'm here to help shape the future, and that future must include better rules, more oversight, and real accountability for those who abuse their power. She clicked a button on her tablet. The screen changed. Up came a new plan, the Justice Accountability Act. It included new laws to make sure warrants were checked by independent judges, that evidence couldn't be planted without consequences, and that public officials weren't targeted unfairly. This is only the beginning, Maya said. We still have a long way to go, but today we take a step forward. Applause filled the room, strong and steady. A new chapter. Later that day, Maya walked through the halls of Homeland Security headquarters. People greeted her warmly. Good to have you back. You did something amazing. You made a difference. She nodded politely, smiling, but her thoughts were already moving ahead. She had won her case. She had cleared her name. But she knew the fight wasn't over. There would always be people who tried to misuse power. Always those who thought they could silence others without consequence. But there would also be people like her. People willing to stand up, to speak out, to fight for what's right. She reached her office and sat down at her desk. On it was a letter from a young girl in high school. Dear Dr. Ellis, you inspired me to believe that I can do anything, even if people try to stop me. I want to grow up to be like you. Thank you. Maya read it twice. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not to forget, but to keep close. A visit to Capitol Hill a few weeks later, Maya returned to Congress, and this time not as a victim, but as a leader. The Senate Oversight Committee had invited her to speak again, this time about the new laws being proposed. She entered the hearing room confidently. Lawmakers greeted her. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras rolled. As she took her seat, she looked around the room. Some of these same faces had doubted her. Others had supported her from the start. Now they were all listening. She spoke clearly and calmly. We cannot allow what happened to me to become someone else's nightmare, she said. We must act, not just because it's right, but because it's necessary. She laid out the details of the Justice Accountability Act. She answered questions. She stayed calm, even when some senators tried to challenge her. By the end of the hearing, several lawmakers had agreed to support the bill. Change was coming. A quiet evening that night, Maya sat on her porch again. The stars were out. The air was cool. Her neighborhood was peaceful once more. Daniel joined her holding 2 cups of tea. You did good today, he said, handing her one. She smiled. Thanks. They sat in silence for a while. Then he asked, What's next? Maya looked out at the street. Next, we keep going. We push harder. We protect the system from those who want to break it. He nodded. Sounds like a mission. It is, she said. A final message. A month later, Maya gave a speech at a national conference on justice reform. She stood on stage, looking out at thousands of people, activists, lawyers, students, officers, and everyday citizens. This story didn't end with me, she said. It continues with all of us. She paused. If you see something wrong, don't stay quiet. If you feel afraid, don't let fear win. Speak up, stand tall, do what's right, even when it's hard. The crowd rose to its feet. Applause echoed through the hall. Maya smiled, not out of victory but purpose. The fight wasn't over, but neither was she. And with that, Maya Ellis turned toward the future, ready to lead, to inspire, and to make sure justice was never silenced again.